The build I am using will be linked in the description. It will be used to demonstrate a counterpoint to my own ideas. Also, if you like free Chipotle, subscribe as I'm giving away a gift card to a random sub. With the advent of Prismatic, both players and Bungie have realized that Titans are being outpaced by nearly every other class. When asked about Titans combat area lead Benjamin Womack replied, "I'm not gonna lie, we're talking about Titans a lot right now internally. I'm looking at that which is not just Prismatic at all. Weighing all that together, and we're definitely not done touching Prismatic at all." Why? What is wrong with Titans that has Bungie potentially updating their brand new subclass because of them? Let's ask world's first raid teams how often they use Titans. 1%. 1% of every player in the top teams in the world's first were Titans. Freaking 1%. That is an unprecedentedly low number. This goes far beyond Hunters being too good. This goes beyond Titans being too niche. If that were true, they would have shared the slice of pie with the Warlocks. No. This is about Titans being bad. The way top teams see it is that there is virtually no need for a Titan anymore. Titans are obsolete. And I do not believe that Bungie's current trajectory to fix Prismatic would be the only needed fix. Again, if just Prismatic Titans were bad, then surely other Titan classes would have been represented, right? No, I think this is more of an issue that Titans have a different problem than just sheer power. Titans have a terrible case of identity theft, and this video aims to examine why. Throughout 10 years of Destiny's life cycle, the Titan's meta placement, or rather how effective a Titan is when competing with the other classes, is almost exclusively binary. Either Titans are too strong or too weak, with very few times in between. By their very design, Titans lack nuance. This does well to make them feel like a Titan. They are strong, abrupt, and a sturdy class that are often defined by what they do rather than what they are. But if they aren't topping the charts, what are they? When asked to describe the playstyle of Titans, almost invariably they'll be described as the melee class. Even though Titans have plenty of other valuable tools, this is the number one thing that sticks in the mind of the player base. Why? Well, as Douglas MacArthur put it, you are remembered for the rules you break. Titans cannot escape this gameplay loop stereotype simply because that's the only place they have ever truly broken the game. Let's think about what Bungie wants for this class before we break down its flaws. What kind of problems have Titans been designed to create or to solve? What do they do better than other classes? What can a Titan do that no other class can? Let's look at this from the perspective of the exotic class items. Outlined in red are the Titan's exotic perks. Outlined in light blue is every perk that was or is generally accepted as good in PvP and PvE. Understandably, there is little overlap between non-class specific perks on these class item roles. Warlocks are more likely to have Warlock perks and Hunters for Hunter perks. Generally speaking, at least 50% of the possible perks on each class item are viable. Now let's look at Titans. While this assessment is absolutely 100% imperfect, it appears to me that Titan's best chance, generally speaking, of having a spot in the meta is for them to just simply play a different class. But this identity crisis must extend far past just the class items. For 10 years, Titans may not have been an issue, but now that Prismatic is here, and I believe that both players in Bungie are realizing that Titans can only be effective when they are devoted to their primary gimmick. Dilute that or take that gimmick away, and suddenly they sound like a poorly written one-note song. Perhaps this is just my Warlock bias, but it has always seemed to me, at least since Forsaken, that Titans have always been the least popular class to pick. From encounter design to ability nerfs to utility tools, Titans just simply can't keep up. Prismatic isn't the problem. Where Prismatic came from is the problem. If you look at what's included for each Prismatic subclass, aspects and such, it tells us what coherence, synergies, and playstyles the designers thought were the core part of that class's experience. Why did Bungie choose some aspects over others? To me, it seems obvious that they tried avoiding overlapping ability-based aspects as much as possible, likely for programming reasons, while sticking to each class's main theme and identity as closely as possible. They also added any aspects that were new, such as Ascension, Unbreakable, and Helion. It's just good for marketing, right? What did this look like for each class? For Warlock, despite being fed a sample platter of all things Warlock, the flavor of Warlock is consistent throughout the kit. Mostly, this flavor is derived from Warlocks creating magical helpers and augmenting their grenades. For Hunters, yet again we see a fantastic chorus of synergy and their playstyle distinction ring through their kit. Arguably better than Warlocks because of this strong emphasis on debuffing, which is a tad easier to build around. Now onto Titans. To me, most of these seem oddly out of place for the historically agreed upon brawler melee identity, doesn't it? To me, it seems pretty obvious that Bungie is trying their best to define the class for more than just a fist factory, but they are clearly failing according to their own measure. Knockout, Unbreakable, Consecration, Diamond Lance, and Dregnir's is... Okay, let's pause for a second. Is that Diamond Lance? Since when was Stasis Titans designed around freezing targets? Isn't their whole thing shattering crystals? For that matter, Consecrate is good, but not at all what anyone would have assumed to be the main identity of the Solar Titan, not until Pyrogels was invented at least. And isn't Knockout just an extremely basic aspect compared to the Titan's other arc aspects? Now, this isn't to say that these aspects are bad in a vacuum, but rather that they seem contrary to the subclasses they are sourced from, or seem chosen purely for their raw power, rather than the playstyle fantasy that Titans typically go for. Something at the fundamental level is disaligned. If these are what is meant to represent Titan's variety of playstyles, and that variety is underperforming badly, then maybe the class items were right. The best way to play Titan is to play another class. Combine this with a laughably bad representation among top players, and I believe the picture is clearly being painted that from the very roots of Titans we have rot. Let's go case by case. Arc. Each Arc subclass is designed to have unique ways of getting and then using Amplified. Warlocks use Ionic Traces and then gets benefits to their melees and Arc Souls. Hunters use defeats on jolted targets and hits with Disorientating Blow, and the now new Ascension aspect, which benefits their dodge with Flow State. Titans. Knockout is their only unique way of getting it, and Seismic Strike and Juggernaut are the only ways of using it. Each subclass, of course, can use Arc multi-kills, but that doesn't really help the identity if everyone can do it, now can it? Titans have no variety for damage options from their class. Both supers are melee only, which will immediately lose all value if the boss can't be meleeed. Because Titans do practically nothing meaningfully to use their amplified buff, and their slightly more exclusive effect of Blind is still best sourced from the class-wide Flashbang Grenade, what does this end up causing? It causes Titans to have no niche when compared to the other classes. You want rapid fire healing melees like Knockout? Just run Arc Hunter with Gambler's Dodge and Combination Blow. You want maybe blind spam? Run Warlock with Ionic Traces for rapid ability cooldown. You want a one and done Arc Super? Again, just Warlock or Hunter. Last place in utility, last place in power, last place in identity. Void. Void has 6 total keywords, 3 buffs, 3 debuffs. This allows designers to give each subclass 2 each to play around. Hunters have invisibility and weakening in their aspects, melees, and supers. Warlocks have Devour, and they can multi-tool into either Weaken with Child of the Old Gods or Volatile with Chaos Accelerant, their melee, or Nova Warp. Titans get Overshield and Volatile with their aspect, and some unique ways to suppress targets with their melees, and now a Weaken effect from their super. If you needed a Void Overshield for some reason, it would seem Titans would be the play. They have aspects that provide it and empower it through Offensive Bulwark and Bastion. But again, let's look closer, starting with Offensive Bulwark. this aspect only has value while you have an overshield up or cast your super. Overshields break in higher tier combat very, very easily, quickly reducing the effectiveness of this aspect. And or still, the best way to see benefit from this is to take safe melee fights. A melee fight where you don't lose your overshield and can still, you know, put a fist on a target. When has getting close to an enemy ever been safe? Okay, well, we at least get our overshield up frequently, right? No, you don't. Bastion makes the barricades a cooldown of a standard 3 minutes. 3 minutes. That is almost 3 times longer than Towering Barricade. So the best way to continue gaining overshields is from Echo of Vigilance, a fragment that every class has access to, or Repulsor Brace, again, a non-class specific weapon perk. This doesn't fare much better for volatile and controlled demolition. While it is far easier to apply the debuff in theory, being that it only requires you to deal ability damage, in practice, you can't loop it as effectively as a hunter with something like Gerfalcons, or a warlock just simply using Devour for an even bigger amount of heal with the Echo of Instability for the ability to get volatile rounds, or even just simply a warlock using Astrocyte Verse, which is a crazy statement I thought I would never say. Again, there is a weapon perk, Destabilizing Rounds, which also works and again is not class specific. The best part of a Void Titan's kit is their super and their new Unbreakable aspect, which I love for the record. But for making space for themselves in the meta, no. Last place in utility, last place in power, last place in identity. Solar. 5 keywords, one of which is fake, not being Cure. Every class plays around Scorch, which irks me to no end, but we'll get to that. And Warlocks have unique tools for Cure and Restoration. Hunters make heavy use of Radiant, and Titans, I guess, get Ignitions. The Throwing Hammer has historically been the strongest part of the Titan's kit, but we cycle back into this boom-bust cycle of power, being that it's such a linear buff or debuff without any real utility. Either it's too strong and breaking the game, because that's all this Titan can do, or it's too weak and you're better off running a Hunter with an infinitely free-funding throwing knife that also causes ignitions. Roaring Flames is unique, but lacks any way to actually build into it, as it only increases its own power. Nothing else from the verbs are present here. Consecrate is great, but just like the Throwing Hammer without a way to build around it, it's either too strong or too weak. Again, Soul Invictus fares much better, but Sunspots again have been watered down so much because of the exact same problem. You want Scorch and Ignition? Just use Heat Rise's Warlock with Touch of Flame, or a Hunter with a Weighted Knife or Caliban's Hand. You want healing? Warlocks do it far better, and Hunters have much stronger synergies for Radiant. Titans again are last place in utility, last place in power, last place in identity. At least this time they have a ranged damage super. It's okay. Stasis, slow, freeze, shatter, Hunter, Warlock, Titan. I believe Titan's Stasis kit to be the most unique and in flavor, which is sad because I think this is universally believed to be if not the worst subclasses in the game, both for PvP and PvP. And unfortunately for Titan, because they do nothing to gain benefit to their shattering crystals in any serious meta impacting way, both the slow and freeze focus of Hunter and Warlock makes the shattered focus Stasis Titan feel obsolete, because both slows and freeze invariably will lead into a shatter. So again, last place in utility, last place in power, last place in identity. Last but certainly not least, Strand. Warlocks are uniquely good at getting Threadlings with a multi-tool kit for other keywords. Hunters are uniquely good at severing with a multi-tool kit for other keywords. Titans have unique elements around Woven Mail, Tangles, and Suspending. Or do they? Because every class can make Tangles, every class can easily get Woven Mail, and every class has a powerful tool for Suspend, one with a faster cooldown at that. So this leaves Banner of War being the only item that Titans have unique to them. But wait, hold the phone. Banner of War was overpowered, so it got nerfed. Not to mention, nothing about Banner of War is explicitly Strand focused. In fact, there are no Strand keywords present at all on the aspect. You could take Banner of War, change its color, and it would work on any of the Titan subclasses. I believe Strand Titan to have fared the best compared to his brothers, mostly because I am willing to bet Bungie during the life cycle of Strand saw the impossible meta puzzle they were creating and tried desperately to steer the ship in the other direction. Even still, warlocks are far better at suspending targets with the wanderer aspect or mindspun evocation, suspending an entire room with one bullet. And woven mail is easily acquired by a fragment. Strand Titans melees sever targets and they get 3 charges, but outside of their damage, this melee is useless as hunters can sever an entire room with a rope dart and get their full melee charge back if they catch it. So the cycle continues. Last place in utility, last place in power, last place in identity. Less than 20% of my time is spent playing Titan, which is far better than the average 12% for most players with all 3 classes. And even I, as the stuck-up Warlock main that I am, can see that they need help. Titans are either too strong or they are outclassed with little times in between, where they actually have relative balance. These poor bastards can't catch a break, and their supers have been so pigeonholed into melee only that they literally lose all super damage if the boss denies their melee. Hunters and Warlocks can occupy the same utility space for a Titan for arguably less overall loadout investment. But why doesn't Bungie fix it? Because they can't. They can't. Bungie has painted themselves into a corner, because imagine the riots that would come out of nerfing or, better yet, outright removing something like Repulsor Brace, or making Suspend harder to acquire on Strand Hunters and Strand Warlocks. And I know what a lot of you are thinking. Well, Warlocks and Hunters have things that they can get access to too. But the difference here is that they either get far better, more usable access to them, or they can make use of what they have more extensively. So, what do? We buff Titans. We buff them, and we buff them. We buff them until they're too strong again, and then we nerf them, and then we nerf them, and we nerf them, and the cycle continues until Destiny 3. I am not as smart as Bungie. If I were to make changes, I would likely make a lot of people upset. I'm just some nerd who spends too much time thinking about this game, but here are some potential ideas. First off, Arc. Remove Amplified from double kills. Amplified is already easy enough to get through aspects like the Spark of Volt's Fragment. Forcing Warlocks and Hunters to go for finishers for cheap sources of Amplified fits in line with the balance of invisibility on Void. Change Spark of Momentum to allow you to continue to maintain Amplified whenever you deal kills while Amplified. Its near permanent uptime as is right now means we can't actually do anything interesting with it, forcing it to be a lackluster, watered-down speed boost at best. Buff Juggernaut to grant the Titans damage resistance while amplified, as well as their shield, and make them take reduced knockback damage generically with this aspect equipped. This allows them to more safely close the gap on targets to actually be worth a damn for their supers and melees. Buff Ballistic Slam to let it grant health on hits by default. This allows you to play aggressively with the ability to recover from its long windup. Buff Thunderclap. Let it blind while amplified, or let it wind up significantly faster while amplified. Thruster is atrocious in PvE and doesn't fare much better in PvP, so here are 3 ideas. Either let Thruster grant amplified while dodging near targets, similar to something how a Hunter would work, or give it 2 charges, or give it a near instant cooldown when amplified. Most importantly though, just like how Thrusters with Dregners on Prismatic works, let more Barricade exotics work, such as Kepri's Horn for a single blast solar wave, Icefall Mantles for a small overshield after dodging, Sightons for a Juggernaut shield while dodging, and Crest of Alpha Lupi for healing while dodging. And last, but certainly not least, make Fist of Havoc worth a damn. At this point in power creep, it can go back to its previously nearly unkillable and extremely long-lasting state before the nerf, and I doubt very many people would even notice. Solar, Ice Cold Take. Healing Grenades and Ember of Empyrean made Solar far too easy to just simply never die. Solar classes have been meta for nearly 3 years straight, and I'm willing to wager that this fragment is a good portion as to why. This ubiquitous accessibility again has the effect of every class using the exact same style of build and disallows unique class-defining playstyles. Let Ember Empyrean instead only continue Radiant buffs, as this will then encourage more builds to be built around damage-forward playstyles using either Ember of Resolve or Ember of Mercy setups for healing. Ember of Torches is in the exact same boat. Once again, I will be unpopular and suggest that this fragment trigger be moved to finishers, or at the very least, final blows. Increase the base timer on Restoration and Radiant to compensate for these nerfs. Better solidifying Warlocks as the healing support and Hunters as the damage support. Now, Titans can get silly without needing to worry about them being able to break the game by living through the wrath of God himself. Roaring Flames. Let Titans embody the ideology of too angry to die. Solar ability kills grants bonus scorch stacks and increased ignition damage to your abilities per stack of Roaring Flames. This allows Titans to specifically play into Scorch and Ignitions more coherently for their kit while maintaining the exact same damage output and flow that everyone's come to know and love. This also synergizes with Consecrate and Sol Invictus. Speaking of Sol Invictus, this does everything for the Titan, preventing Bungie from being allowed to buff them up in any meaningful damage-focused or support-focused way. Remove the Restoration, increase the base Scorch damage, and let the Titan gain Cure whenever they ignite a target while this buff is active. While we are here, can we change Ember of Tempering to cause an AoE of Scorch around the player whenever they gain Cure? Just something. This fragment is so disappointing. Alright, on to Void. Warlocks have the best time with Devour despite other classes being able to acquire it through fragments and exotics. Hunters have the best time with Invisibility despite other classes being able to acquire it through fragments and exotics. Titans need to have the same in a meaningful way. Firstly, let Offensive Bulwark be a separate buff that persists after the shield is broken for roughly 5 seconds. This allows the Titan to potentially regain their shield and buff after they lose it. Next, let Control Demolition on explosions either regain Overshield for better synergies, or just let it get ability energy back again. Bastion is solid, but the increased cooldown has got to go. Reduced Bastion's shield health in PvP to compensate. I know this was a big problem. I'm a PvP player at heart, I get it. The new Unbreakable aspect is peak Void Titan in my opinion, but could be incredible with one simple change. Let the resulting release blast inherit the attributes of the grenade you used. That way, you can use a suppression grenade and have the blast be a suppressing shield blast, or Echo of Undermining to have a weakening shield blast. Lastly, for supers, make the Sentinel's Guard worth a damn. Give it the highest single point of damage boost in the game. It requires you to lose a Guardian for the DPS phase. Make it worth the cost of losing that Guardian. And last, the Darkness subclasses. Stasis. If Titans are about shattering, make their shatters the uncontestable king. Cryoclasm is a useless aspect as it stands, especially in PvE. Add functionality that causes shattered crystals to deal increased damage, similar to the artifact mod from last season that shot that weird little X pattern when you shattered a crystal. Howl of the Storm is like a worse and icy version of Consecrate. Add functionality to this that allows all generated crystals to shatter automatically rather than dissipate like they do naturally. Tectonic Harvest. Let picking up stasis shards grant stasis weapon damage per stack. At 5 stacks, this would be 10% in PvP and 25% in PvE. Alternatively, let this aspect grant the Frost Armor to all allies so Titans can better fulfill their tank role. Strand. Into the Fray is realistically fine. It's the melee that needs help. Like stated earlier, this melee gets used for its 3 charges and its damage. Rarely, if ever, for its Sever, unless dealing with champions. In PvP, these are already a death sentence anyway, so just let the Titans have a better and more class-defining utility with it. Let these melees suspend targets. This lets them punch bigger targets without being immediately turned into a fine paste. Dregner's Lash. Strangely, the Abiant Leap feels like it was designed for the aspect to fit around it, not the other way around. Pull the Woven Mail on Suspend off of Abiant Leap and into Dregner's. Instead, let Abiant also create Threadlings on Suspend target kills. Titans have a very hard time getting Threadlings, which feels a little unfair compared to Hunters and Warlocks with having easy access to the Titan's verb. Flechette Storm would make a great DPS aspect on bosses that can't be Blade Furied. A simple damage increase while you have Woven Mail would feel great. Lastly, Banner of War. Try to give this some more strand-specific synergy without destroying its fantastic playstyle. Maybe give it reduced healing, but give it Woven Mail while it's active. Maybe give users inside its aura Unraveling Rounds. Literally give it anything we can build better around. Exotics. Exotics can make the entire build in the entire meta. With as many changes as I am proposing, I understand that Titans would likely experience a period of being too hot, but the goal should be for them to be too hot for reasons other than just pure damage output like they have been in the past. Skullfort, outclassed in everything but low in content. Keep its functionality, but let arc melees blind on hits. Mask the Quiet One, a year 1 exotic that has always been lackluster. Let it deal increased damage with kinetic weapons while you are critically injured. Keep its other functionality. Capri's Horn is a gimmick exotic that would quite realistically be better if the subclass didn't suck, so keep it as is. Helm of Saint 14, let it suppress instead of blind while inside of a bubble. Keep its other functionality. Eternal Warrior, let the Fist of Havoc kills increase the Fist of Havoc's damage and duration. Keep all the rest of its functionality. One-Eyed Mask is in design gridlock. I guess we keep it as is for now. Precious Scars is a far better exotic right now, but let it get max armor charges when rezzing an ally. Keep all other functionality. This would not be present on the class item, by the way. Lorelei, again, a victim of its lackluster subclass. Leave it as is until the subclass gets buffed. Lance Cap, a fine exotic. Leave it as is. ACD Zeros is peak exotic Titan design. Requires it to be built around to function and has counters. Leave it as is. Doomfang, once again, Sentinel gets better. This will get better. Leave it as is. Synthos, another case of design gridlock. The best idea I've had is to restrict its benefits to only while you have an armor charge, then expel all of those armor charges on your next melee for increased damage per charge consumed. Aeons are universal, so don't touch them. Ashen Wake will feel better when the Sunbreakers do. Worm God is a similar problem to Synthos, and I think for now a longer duration until the wielder deals damage would suffice. Ursas are great with Unbreakable now. I love them. Strongholds are fine. Titans suck and were nerfed because of sheer dominance in PvP. So the solution? Give it a buff that is best felt in PvE. Shooting through your Titan's barricade deals increased damage. Think like an Empowering Rift on Warlocks. And Pierce Barrier Champion Shields. Ice Falls. Why don't these grant a full stack of Frost Armor? Let these grant a full stack of Frost Armor, and then let Stasis weapons deal increased damage while you have Frost Armor. No backup plans. Let these grant Void Overshield on any class that's equipped, and then let this armor slowly reload rounds into your equipped weapons while you have a Void Overshield. Think in speed, similar to like a holster mod. Second chance shields are fine as is and will be better with subclass buffs. Point of contact brace is now better and will feel much better with the Thunderclap buff. Power Gills, same story. Wishful Ignorance is great. Crest of Alpha Lupi has been just okay since release. Change its bonus Super Orb generation to instead grant orbs whenever you block damage with your barricade. Actium War Rig, let this give kinetic auto rifles a version of target lock. I want a sweet business meta as God intended. Hollowfire Heart will be better when its subclass gets better. Armamentarium is boring, but it does its job. Leave it as is. Heart of Inmost Light is the absolute best representation of the boom-bust cycle of Titans. Try removing the damage of these in exchange for a much faster ability regen. Severance is now better, but still sorta lacking. Let the explosions deal subclass-specific debuffs like the Bombardiers do on Hunters. Cuirass of the Falling Star, let this also buff Ballistic Slam. I didn't mention it before, but increase Thunder Crash's base damage to the Cuirass of the Falling Stars type damage, and instead just let this get some energy back per enemy killed, similar to Skull of Dairakam Kara on Warlock. Hoarfrost, these will be better if Stasis gets better. Arbor Warden is a weird exotic, but we can at least give it some utility. Let it cause knockback to targets where the Baronade lands. Hazardous Propulsion is great, I love it, and you're seeing gameplay of it in the background. Lion Rampants just got a stealth buff, see our latest video. Peacekeepers do their job and they do it well, keep it as is. Dune Marchers, why don't these cause Jolt now? Legitimately confusing. Mark 44 stand-asides, give these increased melee regen while sprinting. Antaeus can probably regen super energy again, or at the very least reload weapons when you slide. Peregrines are perfect. Phoenix Critter will get better when its class gets better. Path of Burning Steps is more of the same. Okay, 4.5 thousand words later, what do you think? Let me know with a comment, and don't forget to subscribe if you want your chance at that burrito. Bless your faces, and deuces.